Guy Daniels and Ray LeMaitre.
Welcome to the after show on TelecomTV. I'm Guy Daniels, Director of Content, and we are broadcasting live and waiting to hear from you, our audience, at the end of day 5, the final day of the DSP Leaders World Forum 2021. We have a great lineup of guests joining us again, eager and willing to answer your questions. We've received some already, but please keep them coming in. And if you haven't got in touch yet, then do so now using the form on the website below this video. Well, time to introduce my co-host for the after show, Ray LeMaitre, Editorial Director at TelecomTV. Hello again, Ray. Now, the theme of our final day has been DSP revenue streams. What have been the highlights for you?
Well, Guy, we've heard a lot this week about technology, culture and strategy. Now we're focusing on a subject very close to my wallet, the moolah, the dinero, the cash. Companies are in this industry to make money, and the way they make money is changing. As ever, we've had great insights from BT's Chief Architect, Neil McRae, particularly on back office functionality and observability in his DSP Leaders Address interview. And then we've had a great plethora of insights in our roundtable discussions. How can DSPs accelerate speed to market for new services and edge as a driver of new service revenues? So a lot to talk about. Back over to you, Guy.
Thank you, Ray. And as you say, ultimately, it all comes down to making money. So let's try and address this now. And joining us live on the programme today are Neil McRae, MD Architecture and Technology Strategy and Chief Architect, BT Group. Beth Cohen, SDN Product Strategies at Verizon. Diego Lopez, Senior Technology Expert with Telefonica. Tim Smith, VP Nokia Europe. And Sergio Gonzalez, Cloud Architect at Microsoft. Well, hello everyone. Good to see you all again. Lots of questions to get through in the next 45 minutes or so. So Ray, over to you to get things started.
Okay, thanks, Guy. So Beth, before we start, a very quick question for you, and we're going to be asking this of all of our guests. What got you into telecoms? How did you start your career in this industry?
Well, the truth is I was bought. So I was working for a little company called Bulk, Brannick and Newman, which was actually we were the actual inventors of the internet. And then a telecom bought us. But little did they know that what they were getting was not 700 network engineers. They were also getting an acoustics company as well. So the rest is history.
Wow, excellent, great story. Thanks. Okay, so let's come to our first audience question of the day. And that question is, how important is edge roaming to the development of telco edge services?
That's a great question. And I would say it depends very heavily on the use case. So when you're talking about roaming, as in like the use cases for logistics and for things that are moving in general, cell phone, games, etc. That's clearly where the roaming is going to be important. However, a whole lot of the edge use cases are actually fixed. So the answer is both. I think, yes, it's important, but it's not exclusively important.
Okay. Would anybody else like to come in on the topic of edge roaming for the development of services, or we can move straight on to the next question? Okay. Oh, Diego.
Yeah, no, well, that depends very much. I mean, in my view, depends on the what we talk when we're talking about roaming. If it is the roaming of users or the roaming of applications. I mean, for sure, the roaming of users depends very much on this, but what is important, and I think is one of the strategic advantages of telco edges, is precisely the possibility of having a pervasive global platform for applications that well, eventually would become able to migrate from one environment to the other. That is something that is one of the main characteristics of telco networks. And I believe if we succeed in finding a way of warranting this roaming of applications, we will succeed in the endeavor of making the telco edge something feasible.
Okay, excellent. Great, thank you very much. So, Guy, I'll hand over to you for the next question from our audience.
Thank you, Ray. Sergio, now prior to working with Microsoft, you've worked for telecoms vendors and operators. So what got you interested in telecoms? How did you get your start here?
So, well, I think I was a bit predestined to work in the telecom industry because I was at school as a telecom engineer. So after so many years studying the great Fouriers and Nyquist and those scientists, so I really wanted some innovation and some action. So I joined Telefonica R&D unit. In that time, the great buzzword of the future was going to be 4G, the evolution of 3G, IMS. So we started doing quite innovative projects. Later on saw production a decade later. So somehow I was at school and then I moved into the real industry. So it was a great move.
Excellent. Born into telecoms. I like it. So let's move on to our next viewer question then, Sergio. Will the edge services market only take off and be cost effective once the market develops better performing silicon and new acceleration options?
I think the innovation happening at the silicon space is huge, is tremendous. What we are starting to see is the consolidation of discrete silicon components in fully managed and secure devices, and this is something that is going to evolve quite rapidly in the next few months. You will see strong innovation. At Microsoft, for example, we recently announced Azure Percept, which is a framework of managed and secure devices in which AI capabilities can go and happen at the edge. So we are in a very good position now of maturity in the device space for the next use cases to happen quite rapidly, I guess. The problems that you have when you need to manage a fleet of thousands of devices out there in the field are huge. Security, update management, how do you infer models, how do you scale operations, how do you automatically take failures, and we are putting in place certain capabilities that will create the perfect set of functionality for those use cases to take off, and that's something that we will see very rapidly.
Thank you very much. And Neil, have you got views on this question?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's a barrier to edge services today, but I think silicon. I mean, right now, unless you've been hiding under a rock, we have some big challenges around silicon availability, particularly 40, 50 nanometers, which is still used in a lot of devices. In my mind, I think we're going to see silicon drive a lot more edge type functionality. So, for example, single chip, highly encrypted devices, for use in medical use cases, for use in other kind of security use cases, where I think having a very tight silicon silicon security solution will really drive a momentum of deployments. Because people won't be worried that the devices are a kind of security risk. So I don't think it's a barrier, but I think it's definitely something that can help us generate momentum for sure.
Thank you, Neil. And Beth, you'd like to come in on this as well?
Yeah, I'd like to talk about that because there's been a trend toward software-defined networking and edges around virtualization, right? So that's a disaggregation move, moving the hardware and the software apart from each other. But in the real world, I mean, that sounds great in theory. However, what we find in the real world is that you still need to deal with the silicon. You still need to deal with all the, the security issues, the applications actually touching the silicon and actually not working with it necessarily. And so what we've found is that there's the need for integration has actually jumped more as a result of software-defined and edge type use cases.
Thank you, Beth. Anybody else like to come in on the hardware, the silicon aspect? If not, then I shall thank you for those comments, because this is an area of great interest to us for the rest of this year, certainly, and beyond. Ray, over to you for our next question then.
Okay, thank you, Guy. So we're going to come to Tim next. So Tim, what got you into telecoms? How did you get your foot on the telecoms ladder?
So I joined this industry. I was asked to join a company called Portal Software, a billing, rating, charging company. I was asked to join Portal Software, who were embarking on a very significant co-development program with a large European operator, and they needed someone to help run that from a commercial perspective. So that's how I came into telecoms.
Okay, great, excellent. So question now from one of our viewers, and this is a bit of a mix of a statement followed by a question. Telcos can't be expected to come up with all the new service ideas themselves. So is there a better way for them to partner commercially with third-party providers to generate new service revenues?
So I think that's a great question, and I would completely agree with the first part, the statement, which is telecom providers can't be expected to invent all of these new commercial services themselves, and there is a much better way. If you take a step back and look at the services that CSPs have in the market today, they're typically very little differentiation between them. They're typically quite technology driven. These are the functions that we have. This is what we can deliver, and that's what they take to market. They take voice and text services to market. There is the opportunity, though, to really diversify those services. If you could take your catalog of assets, which you use to create and deliver your services to market, and expose that catalog to third-party companies for them to take their assets and their functions and their capabilities and put it into your catalog, such that when you define new services, they become a mashup of your capabilities and also the capabilities of third parties. Then you can start to create truly differentiated services, and you can become far more outside in. You can become far more market driven. You can understand something that's happening in the market, a demand, a requirement in the market, and create a service which responds to that requirement. And this is where the over-the-top players have been so successful. So this, I think, is a really agile, a really great way that the telco providers can be far more agile and far more differentiated by taking their catalog and exposing it for other companies to put their assets into your catalog. You can also achieve the same thing through network exposure function. We've typically used network exposure function as a one-way gate for service providers to say, here are my assets to third parties. When you're building your capabilities, here are my assets that you can use. But you could also use network exposure function the other way, to draw in third-party functions and capabilities into your ecosystem and use those to build and define those assets. And then you can move down into after you've got those new services and you've launched those new services to market, then you can move down into the rating, the charging, the billing aspects of it, which is, instead of having quite fixed and rigid charging models, you can start to charge anything by any metric. And then you can really start to offer differentiated models charged in a very different way. So if you're taking mobile gaming, for example, why charge for that by megabit? Why not charge per gaming hour or per game? So I think absolutely there is a much better way, a far more collaborative way for service providers and over-the-top players, third-party companies and enterprise to collaborate to generate this next generation of digital services.
Okay, great. Thanks, Tim. And Sergio, I can see you want to come in on this.
Yes, certainly. Everything that has been described moves towards from network infrastructure to connectivity platforms. So the only reason for doing that is for leveraging the benefits of a platform. So platforms are successful if you only let others benefit from your capabilities. Of course, you're going to get a prime for that, but certainly thinking about endogamic services on top of platform doesn't make any sense. We really have to think on connectivity platforms that let others create value on top of you. Of course, operators are going to get benefit. Are going to benefit from that, but the idea of building your own. You on your own building services on top of your networks, I don't think is gonna scale. You really we have to open network capabilities for others to develop applications and value on top of those connected platforms.
Okay, thank you, Sergio. Diego, I see your hand up, and Tim also. You want to come back in, and Beth. Okay, so Sergio, Tim, and then Beth. Diego, I'm sorry, Diego. Beg your pardon.
No, because Sergio was. No,
Yeah.
just it's just a reflection about not in general, but it's a particular aspect that we have to sort out that deals with something that it used to be very important to me some years ago. That was about identity, about how you identify the different participants in the communication, how you deal with their permissions and who they are and what they do. What is important is that telcos, and I would say even the hyperscaler cloud providers, etc., are used to deal with one-way identification of the customer, the SIMs, etc. In this scenario that we are talking about, that I agree is necessarily the way in which the edge will become true, there is a need of bidirectional or multi-party identification between the platform itself, the application provider, the customer of those applications, and whoever plays some roles of aggregation, discovery, etc. And this is very important because these multi-party identities, etc., is something that we have to explore and we have to somehow settle in a common framework that can be can make the whole market or the whole ecosystem flourish.
Okay, great. Thanks, Diego. Tim, we'll come back to you and then up to Beth.
Yes, thanks. I think I'd like to go back to a comment that Neil made in a previous session, which is, as an industry, we spend a lot of time talking about the plumbing, about the infrastructure, and we don't spend enough time, I think, talking about the services. You know, the actual services, the actual monetization. How do we as an industry monetize all of those investments that we're making? If you look at 5G, they're going to be some very significant investments, but they really represent an enormous opportunity to go into different spaces and launch new services. And so I think that, we need to make sure that we keep the conversation not just at the infrastructure layer, which of course is incredibly important, but also on so how do we monetize that infrastructure? How do we focus on bringing new services to market? And as an industry, how do we really change the customer experience? So I think that we need to keep focus on both areas.
Absolutely. Hence why we have this theme day today, day 5 of DSP Leaders on revenue streams. Yeah. Beth, do you want to come in?
I want to add two comments. One is that I think the U.S.-based large telecoms have been flirting with that for a while. So as you know, both Verizon and AT&T have investments that are outside of the traditional telecom space, and because there's an understanding that yes, we are the carrier, but we can also be the content provider. So I know AT&T has done that much more extensively than Verizon has, but Verizon does have the Verizon Media's business unit, which focuses on delivering media content of various sorts, and also as a result has also has a lot of services related to advertising and mapping content to users, and that's just one aspect of it. On the just to build on the previous comment about 5G, I think that it's really important for the telecom providers to build an ecosystem or a marketplace, I think is a better way to put it, to support the development of new applications for 5G and these newer platforms. And it's not just going to come from the hyperscalers, and it's not just going to come from the telecoms. It does have to come from the newer players, the gaming companies, the IoT device companies, the integrators. We need to provide that ecosystem. I think there's still some missing components. We're great at delivering platforms. We're great at delivering analytics. We're starting to develop application-aware type services that can help deliver this. What's really missing in the ecosystem is network-aware applications, and that's something that I think is a significant gap in that ecosystem. And as telecom providers, we can only go so far in delivering those types of applications.
Okay, great. Thank you, Beth. Okay, thanks for all the comments and answers to that question. Guy, I think we'll move on and come to our next topic. Over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Ray. And a reminder to our viewers, keep the questions coming in, please, and we'll get through as many of them as we can. Okay, Neil, what about you? How did you get into telecoms? How did you get your start in this industry?
So I helped find one of the first ISPs here in the UK back in the early 90s called Demon Internet. And through working there, I made a lot of friends in telco. And literally as I moved out of Demon and I literally got a phone call from a guy called Paul Chisholm, who was the CEO of Colt, who I'd worked with before. And Paul said to me, "Hey Neil, we want to get into this internet and data business. Do you fancy helping us?" And I kind of said, I wasn't really doing it at the time, so I kind of said yes, and I'm glad I did. But I think, and then I was at Colt for 10 years, and I basically built more network than than I could ever have imagined. Learned a lot, made a lot of mistakes. But really got to know the challenges of deploying at scale and in multiple countries. So I think my advice to get into this industry, be friendly with as many people as you can, because they're always looking for someone that might fit the bill that they need.
Great, thanks, Neil. And it also helps if you use the Force.
Always have a Jedi
next
in
viewer.
the corner.
Top tip for everyone watching there: always have a Jedi behind you, having your back. Next viewer question we've got here, and this is a very interesting question. And I'll ask you, Neil, first. Which operators and/or other companies do you benchmark against, and what can you learn from them?
Yeah, listen, I think we can learn from everybody about different approaches to things, or are we doing good enough? I'll be honest with you, the real benchmark for me though is customers, and are my customers happy? That's really where I start. But yeah, we as the UK incumbent, we absolutely compare ourselves to Deutsche Telekom, to Orange, to Telefonica, and there's many forums where we actually get together. So Gartner run one for IT, but what we often find though is that whilst you can use that as the trend of that, over the years, has your spending gone up? Has your time to react gone down? It's quite hard to really draw deep and meaningful conclusions because, for example, here in the UK, we have OpenReach, which for us create some boundaries between OpenReach's independence and a fully integrated carrier that can do everything without having multiple layers. So sometimes, the benchmarking is useful. Sometimes it's less so. We've also started doing, actually many years ago, I kind of pushed to do this when I first joined BT, which is, let's rip the equipment that we buy open and look at the chips and the stuff that's in it and put a price on it, so we make sure that we're getting things at a value, but also allowing, I think it's important that we allow our suppliers to make a profit so they can invest those profits in new technology. So yeah, we benchmark against, as many things as we can. Here in the UK, there's, we've got Umla and those guys that benchmark the network and compare against our other competitors. Of course, we're number one on every measure. So, it's benchmarking's helpful. I kind of think of it as a compass. It's going to guide you in the right direction, but it's probably not going to give you the deep, detailed answers that you're looking for. Other than, and then you've got things like spectrum and building, the way we built buildings is different. So yeah, benchmarking can help, but you've got to use it with a combination of other insight and other data.
Okay, thank you for that, Neil. Any of our other guests want to mention, are there any specific companies they might benchmark against? Diego, please.
More than mentioning specific companies, I would like to remark that the telco industry is, I would say, it's unique in the sense that you have, it's not that you're required or that you should somehow collaborate with your competitors. It's that if you don't collaborate with your competitors, if you're not open to learn from them and at the same time to collaborate with them, you're completely out of the market. And I think is a quite interesting situation that makes us work in a work that is in a way that is different.
Thank you, Diego.
I might come back
any views on this, or
yeah,
go on, Neil.
I might come back. Listen, I think I agree. If we have to collaborate in our industry, there's no question about it. But also, I think we're poor competitors of each other. I'll give an example. Many years ago, before I joined BT, we had a platform that you could easily compare to what Netflix has today. But we didn't want to upset the TV companies who were also a big customer of ours, so we didn't launch it. And if you reflect back and you look at the success of something like Netflix and Disney and the other streaming platforms, that was probably a massive mistake. So yes, we have to work with each other. We have to benchmark and compare things with each other. But I think in a world, where, collaboration will get you so far, and reflect on the previous question, the service that customers used to be interested in was the connectivity service. Now they don't care about the connectivity service because they take it as read. It's what services come above. And I think that as well as collaborating, we need to find, I think we need more kind of intelligence, more energy, more brain power into how we continually compete with each other so that we can continue to do more for customers. And I think our customers are demanding that. We certainly feel that here in the UK, and I see it with our customers in our global space where, they really want us to be inventive and be smart and bring them things that no one else can bring them. And I think that's really important in our industry. Otherwise, we could become like electricity companies where we all sell the same stuff and it doesn't really matter where you get it from.
Good point. Yeah, you shouldn't be afraid to compete. Now, Beth, I know you want to come in, but Tim, let me come to you first, and then we'll go to Beth.
Yeah, no, just very quickly. I think Neil is absolutely correct. The connectivity has become very commoditized. It is very similar to like the other utilities today, and really what the customers are looking for is give me something new, give me something different. But I think we're in a great place because the service providers are really trusted companies. Customers trust banks, they trust the service providers. So we're in a great position of trust. We really understand how to deliver the services. We need to get into how to build those services, how to create those services.
Thanks, Tim. And Beth?
So I want to build on what others have said, which is that I think many of our customers still struggle with the concept that we're no longer just pipe, and we cannot be just a pipe, because you're right, that's just a commodity. I always am, talking to the salespeople, and they, they want to go on and on about, our great, our wireless and our wireline and service delivery. And I'm like, guys, customers don't care whether it's coming over the wire or the wireless. They just want their application to work over whatever transport is underneath. So it's up to us to provide that additional set of services that allow their applications to be delivered to the right places and perform as they're expected. That's really where we can deliver value. And of course, we also need to be frenemies and work together to achieve that. So,
thank you, Beth. Thank you all for those comments on that question. Ray, I'm looking at the clock in the studio and I know the time is pressing on. So over to you for our next question.
Okay, great. Thanks, Guy. So Diego, let's ask you, how did you get into telecoms? What was your start in this industry?
Well, actually, I have two start or two incarnations in telco, because when I finished at the university, I joined the Telefonica Research, Sergio. I am one of the founding fathers of this branch of the Telefonica ecosystem. I left in '92. I started working in academia. I work in things like, fuzzy logic that is very much connected to today's AI, digital identity, and service discovery. And then I connected it with the currently what it was by that moment in about 10 years ago, SDN, NFV, etc. So I reconnect them and reach Telefonica. So I have had these two different moments of in the telco industry.
Okay, a boomerang career coming back to telecoms. Excellent. So next question for you, and this is a question that crops up a lot, but also gets a lot of great answers. Can telcos offer edge services without partnering with the hyperscalers such as AWS, Azure, and Google Cloud? So can telcos offer edge services without partnering with the hyperscalers?
Well, in terms of technical capacity, they can, depending on the service that we're talking about. I mean, there are those services that are very much focused on a quite close loop, very much tied to the network. For sure, they could. There are many other services that are very much connected to cloud deployments, so current cloud deployments, and those would be much more difficult. In the middle, I believe that in the middle there is a quite wide uncharted territory that is going to be occupied by the hyperscalers, by the telcos, by other parties that may appear in the future. And the way I see it is that it will be precisely this, an ecosystem. Who would be at the top of the food chain is another story. But it's going to be, I believe it's going to be an ecosystem of many different partners, those who we know right now, and many others that will appear depending on the demand in the market.
Okay, so a slim set of services without without partnering with those companies, but a broader set with them is what I'm hearing there. Anybody else like to come in and comment on that, or we can? Yeah, Neil and Sergio.
Yeah, so I think I don't think it's a narrow set. Listen, I think that first of all the hyperscalers work with our customers. All the hyperscalers customers work with us in telecommunications. I think it's all about partnership and collaboration, but I don't think we need to work with them, on their own. And in fact, on their own, all they bring us is infrastructure for the most part. So, in my mind, yes, I think they're definitely a player, but I think we've got to independently find a way to the customer and find value to the customer in our own way. Otherwise, I just don't see how we make a return. Earlier today on the TelecomTV website, I noticed a question about 6G, and we just haven't made a return on 5G or enough of a return to even contemplate 6G. and which is very different to where we were with 4G. Just a few years, a couple of years after we launched 4G, where the value was clear and the return was clear. So yes, I think we have got to find more ways of generating value, both individually with partners and actually probably with our customers in the value chain as well, much more as a much more equal partner. So I think unless we do that, I genuinely think our future looks bleak in terms of returns for our shareholders.
Okay, excellent, great. And Sergio, over to you.
Certainly, I have been hearing terms like customer value, innovation, and if that's the purpose, I think hyperscalers can be the right technology partner and also business partner. There is a huge amount of innovation that is being incubated in the hyperscale companies that certainly can be enabled and delivered for operators to enhance the network capabilities. And also, we don't talk anymore about the cloud. We talk about the intelligent edge, the intelligent cloud as a continuum on top of which we can deliver innovation to our customers. Let me tell you an anecdote. Some time ago, I was in an internal conversation at Microsoft explaining what 5G was, IoT, packet core, and all of a sudden I saw people that were coming from the banking industry, from the mining industry, oil and gas, transportation, people that really didn't know the internals of telecom networks were very interested because they were seeing value use cases for their specific industries on next generation networks. So we are a key player on the digital transformation of industries that are aimed to benefit from next generation connected scenarios. So both as a technology innovation provider and as a business partner, I think we are a key player in the next generation services.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, Sergio. Okay, Guy, over to you for a little break in the proceedings.
Yes, thank you, Ray. And before we move on to our next viewer question, let me tell you about the series of polls we are running. Every day this week, we have posted a new poll question related to the theme of the day. Each question is a simple multiple choice. 5 answers ranging from I agree to I disagree. It only takes a few seconds, so please click on your choice of answer and have your say. The poll is right here on the website. And today's question has been, the case for Edge being a driver of new service revenues is still unproven. And you can see the current split of opinions right here. And as you can see, 40% or so saying that the Edge will result in new revenues, but only when technology and business models mature. But there's still a large section there who are unclear. Well, look, if you want your vote counted, go ahead and click on the poll, and we'll keep all of our polls open for another week and report on the results later. Right, back to our Q&A. We've still got a little bit of time to answer a couple of questions, so I shall hand straight back to Ray.
Okay, excellent. Thanks, Guy. So for our next viewer question, this is very much focused towards you, Neil. So the question is, Neil mentioned the urgent need for observability during his DSP Leaders address. Isn't this just network monitoring? Neil, can you shed some light on this?
No, network monitoring is clearly a part of it. Actually, I think one of the greatest things that the hyperscalers have done is know what's happening whenever it happens. And that for me is being able, knowing that something might happen and being ensure that you're able to observe it. I think is something that we've not done enough of in telco, and I think it's a real area of differentiation if you can get it right. And the great news is the way that technology's moved in terms of telemetry, in terms of AI and AI ops, allows us to really build that observability in from start, and not just in one piece of the network, but be able to imagine being able to see everything in real time. And the reality is the hyperscalers are using automation to do that, and we can learn from them, but also there's things that we can teach them on that as well. So I look at observability in a much more deeper way tying all the components of every part of the service that we offer, and then using even the simplest of scripting to the most deep complex AI and machine learning, using all of that to really generate value, and then also generate data. I'm looking more and more of everything that flows on the network is almost like oil, in that how do we refine every single piece of data, packet, power use, whatever it happens to be, every single thing with the network and the applications, how can we refine that output to generate more things that we could potentially monetize, or that we can sell, or that we can use to create other capabilities that we can sell and monetize? And I think too often we have a one-dimensional view on a service or a product, when actually there could be much more in it than that. And that's what I kind of look at as observability. It's literally it's kind of like having a pair of X-ray glasses that can see through everything, and really get you to the point of value, and being able to turn that observation into something more value. I think that hyperscalers have done an outstanding job in this space, and I think a lot to learn from them. But also, I think there are some aspects of what we can now do that we can offer back to industry and with our customers. Our customers have got lots of data that they just don't know what to. They don't know. One, they don't know exists. Two, they don't know they can actually use it. And I think that's a great area of partnership between telco, hyperscaler, and customer, where we can bring them much more visibility about their own business, and then use that as a way to improve and transform their business. And in digital transformation, I think if you're not thinking about observability on every aspect of that, you're probably just building another IT stack that isn't going to help you for the future.
Okay, excellent, great. Thank you, Neil, for talking us through that. Beth, I saw you wanted to come in there as well.
Yeah, I wanted to add on what, Neil covered it quite well, but I would like to add on it that I really view the AI/ML as really just starting, and I know I'm involved in the Linux Foundation networking group, and we just did a survey of AI/ML interest in the industry, and what we got back was the vast majority of the industry is still just in the beginning steps of incorporating AI/ML into that. The North Star is the feedback loop, right? That allows, as Neil says, allows the applications to really respond to the network, and the network to respond to the applications. We're not there yet, and it involves taking all the monitoring and taking all the reporting, taking all the information about the packet flows and wherever they're coming from. I mean, there's a lot of data, and that has to be correlated, and it has to be tied back to the applications and how they perform and what they need to perform as expected, and business intent. We need to inject business intent rules into that, and I think the telcos and hyperscalers and the developers are all starting down that journey. I predict in the next 2-3 years we'll see a lot more really interesting, fun stuff coming out of that.
Okay, yeah, and we look forward to that, absolutely. Sergio, you wanted to come in there as well.
Yeah, I would like to highlight the great value that open source projects and solutions will have in this journey of data-driven operations, high observability. At the end of the day, when you leverage open source capabilities and projects, you are leveraging the success and the experiences of many players that have used them in their day-to-day operations. So I see moving forward cloudification of their networks. They're going to leverage more and more all the innovation and value that is out there in the open source ecosystems. And this is something that Linux Foundation is heavily pitching, and we see more and more approach in between the open source ecosystem and the network engineering vendors.
Okay. Great, excellent point. Okay, I can see the red light flashing in the corner of my virtual studio, but Guy is telling me that we're going to run over time and get one more question in. So over to you, Guy.
Yeah, we're going to spend some overtime on the crew. We're going to get them working even harder. We've got one question that's just come in, and it's a great one. And the question starts by saying, if you could name just one thing. So that means it's a nice, short answer type question. So let's read out this question that's just come in. If you could name just one thing to move the concept of the distributed edge from tests and trials to full deployment of carrier-grade traffic in urban areas, what would that one thing be? Who wants to give a go on what this one thing could be for our viewer there? Any thoughts on the magic one thing? Beth, go on, Beth. Great.
Network densification and high bandwidth 5G will get that you know, the nirvana of the applications that we really want to use, and you know, the sexy applications.
Excellent, that's great. And Tim, you're going to step in with our one thing.
I would say the fiber connectivity to the edge.
Nice, very clear. Thank you for that. Diego.
Well, we are considering seriously precisely all the ideas around capability exposure, how you expose these capabilities and how they can be discovered and consumed by the applications.
Thank you, Diego. Another good one there. Neil, do you want to wade in with a possible one big thing here?
Virtual reality 3D gaming. Have a look at how well Oculus is selling right now. I think people are kind of done watching TV through the pandemic. Oculus and 3D VR, you know, people are playing golf online. It's a high bandwidth, but also low latency. That will bring the edge out. I really believe that that's starting to get massive momentum.
Thank you, Neil. And Sergio, we can't leave you alone here. We've got to get some kind of input from you. What do you think this one thing might be to really drive the impact of the edge?
I think I also fiber. So for wireless network, you really need a strong fixed broadband in order to leverage backhaul bandwidth. So I also see operators with a strong fiber footprint are in advantage for that.
Thank you, Sergio. Well, we are out of time. It is the end of our after show for today and the end of DSP Leaders World Forum 2021. Thank you to all our guests for joining us on this live program today, and to our audience for sending in questions. In fact, we'd like to extend our thanks to all of our speakers who joined us this year and contributed so much to our discussions. 10 roundtables, 7 leadership interviews and 5 live Q&A shows, all now available to watch on demand. And thank you also to our sponsors, without whom we could not have produced this week of programs. It's all about the ecosystem, and these companies have really shown their support. So that's it for another year. It's all over, bar the post-event analysis. And speaking of bars, Ray and I will hang out at the TelecomTV bar until we become too tired and emotional to carry on.
Tired and emotional and well caffeinated, which isn't conducive to a lot of sleep. The story of my career. Well, it's been a great week, and we'll be looking at some of the highlights and key takeaways from this year's DSP Leaders Forum in our post-show report and also in our extra shot programs, which we'll be filming soon. So look out for those in the coming weeks.
And also watch out for our next DSP Leaders Summit in mid-April, which is focused on the Open Telco. For now, though, from all of us here at TelecomTV, stay safe and thank you for watching. Cheers.
The after show was recorded in front of a live online audience.